Welcome to this week's Forge tutorial. This week we'll be making Scribble bots. Not sure what a Scribble bot is? Well, here's an example. This robot is totally autonomous and will draw on its own accord. It's kind of like an automated spirograph. For this, you'll need some sort of motor, like a little 30-watt hobby motor seen here, and a battery. I'm using a AA. Some tape or rubber bands or even string would work. This will hold your markers, which will be the legs of your Scribble bot, to the container that you're using. I'm using an old Folgers container here. Now that you've gathered your supplies, you'll start with the legs of your robot. You'll need at least 3 markers for this, but you could easily use more. And one quick way to do this is to take some rubber bands and wrap them around your container, and then slowly slide your markers through those rubber bands, which should hold them in place. You could do this with tape as well, or as I mentioned earlier, even string. Once you have your 3 or more legs lined up along the body of your robot, it's time to test it out to make sure it will stand up. Don't be too concerned with the angle of your legs right now. You'll have to adjust these later anyway. Next, you'll want to take the caps off the markers to make sure that this will stand up when it's actually ready to scribble. You can even give it a little turn by hand, gently, just to make sure that it will move when we add the motor. Here's another angle of what that looks like. Now we'll get started on wiring up the motor so that this bot can scribble on its own. We won't connect this just yet, but when we do, we'll take one wire from the motor and connect it to the positive terminal of the battery and one to the negative terminal. But first, it's helpful to lay out where your motor and battery will be positioned on the body of your robot. If you don't have one of these little hobby motors laying around, you could always try using your cell phone on vibration mode, or even using the motor from an electric toothbrush. Regardless of the type of motor you choose to use, the next step will be wiring up your circuit and/or finding a place for that circuit to fit on the body of your robot. Here I'm taping one lead from the motor to the negative terminal of the battery. I'm leaving the second lead of the motor detached for the time being, and this will make it easier for me to test the motor and find the best position for the motor on my robot's body. A quick test of my motor shows that it is powered and ready to go. We've got our motor working, but we need to add something to the end of the shaft to unbalance our motor. This uneven and unbalanced rotation will cause the Scribble bot to turn and rotate in more random patterns. I'm using some tape and a Connects piece to accomplish this with my motor, but really you could use just about anything. You could try putting some clay or Play-Doh at the end of the motor, or maybe just a big wad of tape. Once you're satisfied, it's time to move on and test this motor. Simply attach that second lead that you've left detached until now and see if you can get your motor spinning. Depending on the polarity of your wiring, your motor may spin forward or backwards. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this Scribble bot. We can now move on to attaching the motor to our robot body. Once you've picked your positioning for your motor, it's time to secure it to the robot body. I'm using tape, but you could easily use rubber bands or even hot glue if that suits your fancy. With your motor in position, you can then find the perfect place for your battery. It could sit on top or on the side, that's totally up to you. Once it's positioned, go ahead and take the second lead to the battery and get your motor going. Initially, your Scribble bot may not move very well or at all, so you may need to give it a gentle tap to get it going, or even pick it up to adjust the legs, or even add more legs as I'm doing here. You'll need to run several tests to figure out what the best leg positioning and angling is to get the desired effect from your Scribble bot. No 2 Scribble bots are exactly the same. Some may draw straight lines, some may spin in a spirograph pattern, some may inch along very slowly while some move very fast. The beauty of this project is that there's room for infinite prototyping until you find something that you're satisfied with. Then all you have to do is turn on your Scribble bot, sit back, and watch as it creates beautiful works of art. You can also try picking it up and moving it to a different part of the paper from time to time to get some interesting patterns and overlaps. Here's another quick example of a 4-legged Scribble bot, and as you can see, it moves quite a bit faster than the 3-legged variety. That may not always be the case. but it's fun to experiment with different numbers of legs, different angles of legs, and different placement all over the paper. While your Scribblerbot's no Jackson Pollock, it still made some pretty cool art. Thanks for watching, have fun, and keep making.